Welcome everyone, Costin here on Serious Gaming with a new discussion video on the subject of Total War Warhammer and Creative Assembly's scummy DLC practices, because they're going full speed ahead on this one. They're not changing their stance. They've revealed, I know it's a couple of weeks ago actually, that the Blood Pack will come several months after the game has come out, as with previous games, and that the Chaos Warriors will still remain the pre-order DLC. So they're not changing their stance. But here I want to talk about perhaps one of the main defense that people argue in when it comes to this for Creative Assembly. One of the main arguments that people who defend Creative Assembly's scummy DLC practices, and I don't really understand why anyone would bother. It's like, oh, I like the game. Okay, why do you defend this? It's like, you can like a game, you can like, you can enjoy it without defending the crap that said company does. But that's just my personal opinion. I've been very critical of the games, of some of the games that I've enjoyed the most over the last couple of years. Anyway, so with that in mind, let's talk about this argument that many people use, that the game will still sell well, that it will still sell millions of copies, and then the people that are complaining are only a vocal minority. Because that's just a load of bullshit. First off, on the idea the games will still sell millions, no Total War game since Empire has sold more than 2 million copies. Shogun 2 came close, Shogun 2 with all the DLCs and Fall of Samurai being basically Napoleon or Total War Attila, but still, using the same game climate. It's like it was a standalone expansion. It was called an expansion, by the way, but it was still tied to the game. I'm using statistics from Steam Spy, and you can check them out in the link in the description below. You can see how well Total War titles have sold in general. So Empire sold over 3 million copies, Napoleon 2 million, Shogun 2 over 2.6 million, Rome 2 2 million, and then Attila less than 500,000. So if people were arguing this before Attila came out, even though they're wrong about it being millions, you would have been sort of right. I say sort of right because as far as I know, and I wish I could find some statistics, but as far as I know, DLC sales have never been that great for Total War, actually, because why would you spend money on a faction which is not that different? Like with Warhammer, that's going to be the case. Probably sales are going to be higher for DLC if that game even sells well, which it might not, by the way. Just because it's a Warhammer game, don't assume that the game with a Warhammer brand on it will sell well. There's been plenty of games with a Warhammer brand. Games I've even enjoyed that haven't sold all that well. For instance, Mark of Chaos. I enjoy this game. I enjoy playing it more than Total War. Despite the fact that, doesn't have the same animation quality or anything like that, this Total War I enjoyed more than Total War because every single campaign battle is unique. Whereas with Total War, it's the same shit over and over again. There's nothing. Total War no longer has interesting battles. Anyway, beyond that point, you can see that with Attila, that Creative Assembly's scummy practices, DLC, and just shoving a game every fucking year with low quality, low quality game every single year has had an impact. Attila sold very fucking poorly. In point of fact, Attila sold the worst of any Total War game that they've ever released. Like the absolute worst game that they've ever released. And it's like, and the reason behind that is beyond the fact that that game should have been an expansion for them too, and should have been branded an expansion. People didn't buy that bullshit about it being an expansion about it being a full release game when it was clearly expansion. Top of that, besides the game being boring, it's broken, it's just not really that interesting to play, to be honest. I've tried it numerous times, I never found it interesting. I hate artificial difficulty. That all started with Shogun 2, got worse in Rome 2, got far worse when they fixed the game. It's like, oh, we're fixing the AI, so we want to increase the difficulty through artificial bullshit because the AI is no longer going to act more reasonably with you from now on. So they did that. So Total War Attila, not that great of a game. And perhaps the most important point, Total War Attila had a fuck ton of DLC attached to it. From the start, like when they launched the game, shortly after they launched the game, they started releasing a lot of DLC for that game. Probably because it didn't sell well from the start, and they started releasing DLC, and DLC doesn't sell well that well, so they kind of fucked up pretty badly with Total War Attila. So, you know, just because, you know, previous Total War games have sold well, you know, Rome 2 was hyped to all hell, doesn't mean that there isn't an impact, that Creative Assembly's scummy business practices don't have an impact. It keeps adding up, it keeps piling up, and people at one point or another are gonna have enough. Attila probably was this point. Now, I guess the question is, will Total War Warhammer sell well? That's the main discussion to be had there. Will that particular game sell well despite all the problems? Well, that depends on the state of the game, to be honest. Like, a lot of people are pissed off about the Chaos Warriors situation, and, you know, people are not gonna buy it because of that. People are pissed off. Like, they could have actually, like with Total War Warhammer, if they hadn't done something like that, and if they had actually put blood in the game, like, even with blood, maybe they could have gotten away with that, but blood, Chaos Warriors, and just their scummy DLC practices in general, scummy business practices in general, actually, means that people are going to be very skeptical about that game. There's a lot of people that are on the fence. Like, just for the record, I want a good Total War Warhammer game. I want to enjoy a said game, but I probably won't, and it actually doesn't have that much to do with the DLC. I just think that Total War is not that great, to be honest. Right now, I don't think it's been great for quite a while now, and I don't think they've put any real effort. With Warhammer, they seem to have been moving in a good direction, but then they attach this crap with Chaos Warriors, a fifth of the fucking game. If you don't understand how people are going to react to that, then you're a bloody imbecile. People are not going to react to a fifth of the game being taken away and put in as DLC, no matter the excuse is. People don't have to give a damn about Creative Assembly's explanation, which is, by the way, full of shit. It's like, oh, we did this because otherwise we couldn't have. Like, a bunch of fanboys may have done that, but guess what? Fanboys don't ultimately matter. Total War Warhammer will probably not sell well unless when it comes out it's actually really good. Unless it has a few bugs, unless it actually runs well. Like, that's one issue. Attila ran like shit in terms of performance. Unless it has good performance, unless it runs well, unless it's actually interesting with the quest battles with all those changes, unless those things happen, then it's probably not going to sell all that well. There are some positive changes. Like the fact that we will actually have underground battles, even in the butchered form that they're introducing them. It's like a movement stance in the campaign. Even then, we're still gonna have underground battle. We're gonna have giant creatures, steam tanks, magic, all of that stuff. When Warhammer was announced, there were so many fanboys saying, oh, you know, it would be too difficult for them. It's like, this is what marks the Creative Assembly fanboy base. Like, oh, they were already arguing, it's like, oh, it's going to be too difficult, they're not going to do it, it's too complicated, and all that. That's what they argue, that's their stances on these issues. And then Creative Assembly actually did these things. Like, we are going to have giant creatures, we are going to have heroes from Legend, we are going to have quest battles, we are going to have underground battles, we're going to have a lot of stuff in this game that a lot of the retarded fanboys said we wouldn't have, and we are going to have them. So that's good. The problem is, you know, just because you add more features, if you want to call it that, doesn't mean that the core game is going to be good. Core game has problems, and Creative Assembly has not done anything to fix them. Now, what I'm hoping is that maybe because this is a different team than the historical team, the guys who make the historic games, I'm hoping that perhaps they'll do a better job. But excuse me if I'm quite skeptical on whether or not they actually manage to pull it off on that level. We'll see. We really will see if they can manage to pull it off. Anyway, Costin here on Serious Gaming signing out. I think that what I said is gonna be the case. I don't think Total War Warhammer will sell well just because it's a Warhammer game. I think that the negative publicity will affect them quite badly, and I think they might recover from that, but that, you know, they've made decisions that have hurt them. Guess what? Bad business decisions do fucking hurt your company. It may take a while, but they ultimately do hurt your company. Electronic Arts learned that lesson the hard way. Perhaps it's time for Sega and Creative Assembly to do the same. If Warhammer flops, that might be the end of Total War as a whole, and I'm not sure if that's a bad thing.